4 terrifying Valentine's Day horror stories you won't forget. Story 1. The mysterious Valentine date. I have never been a fan of blind dates. There's something inherently unsettling about meeting a complete stranger, allowing them a glimpse into your life, all because of curiosity. But when my colleagues wouldn't stop talking about it, I let my curiosity win over my better judgment and agreed to give it a try. The cafe was small, tucked away in the heart of the city, its dim lighting casting long shadows that created an ambiance both cozy and eerie. I arrived early, picked a secluded corner, and waited. When the door opened, she stepped in, a woman of undeniable elegance, long dark hair cascading down her shoulders, her smile subtle yet inviting. Nothing seemed off, at least not initially, but the longer we talked, the more I felt something was terribly wrong. She knew I liked black coffee with no sugar. My heart skipped a beat. I had never mentioned this to anyone at work, nor had I posted about it anywhere. How did she know? A wave of unease crept through me, yet I forced a smile, even as my palms began to sweat. Maybe it was a coincidence. But then she started mentioning things that no one else could possibly know. She knew my work schedule, the route I took home, even the small back door of my apartment complex that I used to avoid crowds. My grip on the coffee cup tightened and a cold chill ran down my spine. "You think you're hard to follow?" she murmured, a slight smirk playing on her lips. I let out a nervous chuckle, but my heart pounded violently against my ribcage. That sentence, spoken so casually, shattered the illusion of a friendly meeting. It felt as though I had been marked, hunted, for longer than I could even comprehend. I made an excuse and left in haste. But from that moment on, things changed. The messages began arriving at midnight, chilling, unsettling. "Skipping your usual route tonight? Not a wise choice." Or worse, "You looked restless." "Didn't sleep well, did you?" I never replied, but each time I picked up my phone, my hands trembled, my breath shallow. I tried to convince myself it was a prank, that no one could actually be watching me, but logic couldn't suppress the fear clawing at my mind. I deleted the messages, yet they kept coming. I silenced notifications, yet I found myself checking my phone every few minutes. The feeling of being watched was suffocating. I started glancing over my shoulder every time I left my apartment, searching for a familiar silhouette, an unseen pair of eyes. But I saw no one, or maybe I just wasn't looking hard enough. One night I heard a knock at my door, gentle, persistent. It echoed through the dead silence of my apartment. My body stiffened, heart hammering wildly. 1, 2, 3 knocks. Someone was outside. I glanced at the darkened room around me, gripping the blanket as if it could shield me. A cold shiver crawled down my spine. I wasn't expecting anyone. Slowly, cautiously, I stepped off the bed and moved toward the door. Pressing my ear against the wood, I held my breath, straining to hear anything beyond my own frantic heartbeat. Silence. An unnatural, suffocating silence. I dared to look through the peephole. Nothing. No one. But the air felt charged, as if something was there, just beyond my line of sight, waiting. My phone vibrated. A new message appeared. "Aren't you going to open the door?" I locked every entrance, bolted every window, yet the sensation of being watched refused to fade. I barely slept. I barely left my apartment. And then on Valentine's Day, a package appeared at my door. The moment I opened it, a wave of icy dread crashed over me. Inside was a photograph, a photo of me, sleeping. My hands shook as I gripped the image, my pulse loud in my ears. The dim glow of my bedside lamp cast eerie shadows on my face in the picture, capturing a moment I had no memory of. Panic coiled in my chest, every nerve screaming at me that this was impossible. Someone had been inside my apartment, someone had stood over me while I slept, and that someone was still watching. I was past the point of fear. I sat there trembling, staring at the photo in my hands, unable to comprehend how deeply I had been ensnared in this nightmare. The only question that remained was, where was she now? Have you ever felt like someone was watching you, even when you're alone? Or have you received a message from someone who should not have had your number? Maybe, just maybe, they're closer than you think. Share your stories, if you dare. Do you dare to listen to the dark? Story 2. The Price of Fear. Last Valentine's Day, I experienced a night I will never forget. My girlfriend Emily always loved extravagant dates, places illuminated with candlelight and the rich aroma of red wine. I never hesitated to indulge her, but tonight was different. The moment we stepped into the restaurant, an uneasy feeling crept over me. It wasn't the dim, golden lighting or the unsettling silence that hung in the air. It was the man. He sat in the darkest corner, shrouded in shadow. An old man, perhaps in his 60s, clad in a worn-out black suit. His eyes empty. Not just vacant, but soulless, as if they could pierce through the very marrow of my bones. At first I thought he was just an eccentric loner, a man who enjoyed watching others in solitude, but then I noticed something else, something profoundly disturbing. My heart pounded, an icy sensation creeping down my spine. The man, he didn't blink. From the moment I entered to the second I pulled out my chair, his gaze was fixed on me, unwavering. A waiter arrived and I whispered, asking about him. The waiter hesitated before shrugging. He's been sitting there since morning, ordered a glass of wine, but hasn't taken a sip. Emily, now visibly uneasy, clutched my hand tightly and whispered, "Let's go." I nodded and stood quickly, ready to leave. But just as I turned, another waiter discreetly approached, slipping a folded note into my hand. Confused, I opened it. "Name your price." "Any price." My entire body turned ice cold. A simple message, yet the urgency with which it was given, the way the waiter seemed almost afraid to be seen, made my skin crawl. I glanced back toward the corner. The old man was gone. Impossible. I had only looked away for a split second. I scanned the restaurant, searching for any sign of him. Maybe I had imagined it, or maybe he had slipped away unnoticed. I tried to rationalize it, but then as I reached the exit, he was there, standing right in front of me. I jolted back, my heart hammering against my ribs. Emily gasped, retreating behind me. The man, his lifeless eyes locked onto mine, stood motionless, draped in that same tattered suit. But this time, there was something else. A smile, faint, almost imperceptible, but chilling enough to make my breath hitch. "You cannot escape." A whisper, or perhaps a voice in my head, I wasn't sure. But I knew one thing for certain: I needed to leave, immediately. I grabbed Emily's hand and ran. We bolted down the street, flagged the first taxi we saw, and sped away. I didn't look back. I didn't want to. I just wanted to get home and forget. But as I stepped inside my apartment, something lay waiting for me on the floor. A folded note, the same note. "Name your price, any price." How? How did it get here? The door was locked. The windows were shut. No sign of a break-in. Then my phone buzzed. An unknown number. "You have been chosen." My blood turned to ice. My breath caught in my throat, and a cold sweat broke across my skin. My fingers trembled, nearly dropping the phone. I tried to inhale deeply, to steady myself, but it was as if something constricted my chest, squeezing the air from my lungs. Why was I chosen? For what? I didn't want to know the answer, but maybe it was already too late. A knock echoed through the apartment. I didn't move, I didn't breathe, but I could see a shadow looming outside my door, a familiar silhouette, and those empty, soulless eyes staring through the glass. What do I do? My heart pounded, my grip tightening around my phone until my knuckles turned white. I wanted to run, to hide, but my legs refused to move. My gaze was locked onto the door, my breath shallow, ears straining for another sound. Maybe, if I stayed silent, it would go away. But if it didn't, should I open the door? If you were me, what would you do? Tell me before it's too late. Do you dare to listen to the dark? If tonight's tale gave you chills, let us know your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear what creeps you out and what other stories you'd love us to explore. Don't miss out on the next terrifying story. Subscribe to DTC, The Place of the Brave, and join the family that thrives on the unknown. Tap the notification bell so you're the first to hear every spine-chilling tale. Share this video with someone brave enough to face the darkness, and let's dive deeper into the creeps that haunt our world. Comment below and become part of the terror. The darkness is calling, and we want you with us. Story 3: The Rest Stop Nightmare. I've always hated long road trips, but sometimes there's no avoiding them. A 15-hour drive on the open road, especially at night, can feel like an eternity. The endless highway, the hum of the tires on the asphalt, and the occasional flicker of distant headlights. But what truly haunts me is what happened during a simple stop at a rest area on the side of the road, something that still sends chills down my spine whenever I think about it. It was late at night, the kind of night where the world seems too quiet, almost unnaturally still. I was driving along the East Coast, having already been on the road for hours. I'd passed countless rest areas, but something told me to stop at this particular one. I pulled off the highway and into the small, isolated parking lot. There were only a few cars scattered around, most of them empty, abandoned in the way that rest stop parking lots often are in the dead of night. The building was old, a typical run-down restroom facility you'd expect to see at an old truck stop. The flickering fluorescent lights above cast an eerie, sickly glow over everything. A cool breeze swept through the air, carrying the faint smell of gasoline and something else, something off. But at that point, I was tired, and the thought of a quick break was all I needed to convince myself that it would be fine. I locked my car, pulled my jacket tighter around me, and walked toward the restroom. The building was quieter than I expected. No one was inside. No one was waiting. I stepped inside the dimly lit hallway, my footsteps echoing as I walked toward the bathrooms, and that's when I saw him. There was a man standing in front of one of the bathroom stalls, his back to the wall, facing into the corner. At first, I thought he was using the restroom, but something about his posture didn't sit right with me. He stood unnaturally still, like he wasn't even breathing. His hands were buried deep in his pockets, his body rigid, almost like a statue. His clothes were ordinary, nothing special, but his presence, his stillness, was something I couldn't shake. For a moment, I tried to convince myself that I was overreacting. Maybe he was just tired too. After all, we were all just travelers passing through. But the longer I looked at him, the more uneasy I became. I could feel my heart rate picking up, a strange sense of unease creeping into my chest. But I didn't want to be rude or paranoid, so I ignored him and stepped into a bathroom stall, hoping that I could shake off the strange feeling. I hurried through what I had to do, all the while feeling like something wasn't right. My mind kept returning to the man standing in the corner. I could still picture his motionless figure, how his head didn't move, how his body never swayed. Even though I couldn't see his face, something about his presence felt wrong. When I was done, I quickly washed my hands, trying to push away the lingering anxiety. I opened the door, stepping back into the dimly lit hallway. And that's when I saw him again. The man was no longer facing the corner. He had turned around and was now looking directly at me. His eyes, they weren't normal. There was something empty about them, as if they had no life behind them. Just hollow, dark sockets staring into me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. The kind of stare that felt as though he could see right through me, into my soul. I don't know why, but I felt like I couldn't look away. I wanted to run, but my feet felt frozen in place. My mind screamed at me to get out, to turn around and leave as quickly as possible, but I stayed rooted there, just staring back at him. Then, without a word, he slowly tilted his head and a chill ran down my spine. I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. This wasn't normal. He wasn't normal. There was something unsettling, almost supernatural about his presence. His gaze didn't waver, as if he was waiting for me to make a move. I broke eye contact and turned to leave, the fear coursing through me. My legs felt shaky as I hurried back toward my car, not daring to glance back. The parking lot was just as empty as when I'd arrived, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I got into my car, started the engine, and quickly drove away. But that sense of dread, it didn't leave. I drove for miles, the night air growing colder, my headlights cutting through the darkness. But even with the road stretching out before me, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was following me. My heart thumped in my chest, my eyes flicking nervously to the rearview mirror every few seconds. I came across another rest area a few miles down the road, hoping to stop and clear my head. Maybe it was just the stress of the road. Maybe I was imagining things. But when I pulled into the parking lot, my heart sank. There, standing in the corner of the lot, was the same man. He wasn't moving. He was just standing there, staring at my car. The same stillness, the same unnerving presence. But this time, there was no mistaking it. He was following me. I wasn't imagining things. I slammed the car into reverse, my mind racing. I drove past the man, my eyes wide with fear, not daring to stop. I didn't care if I was breaking speed limits, I just had to get away. I don't know how far I drove before I finally stopped at another rest area, but it was enough distance that I thought I might be safe. When I stepped out of the car this time, I looked around cautiously. The parking lot was completely empty. No one was around. The man was gone. But that didn't make me feel any better. In fact, the emptiness only heightened my fear. Where had he gone? How had he vanished so quickly? Had he been real? Was I losing my mind? Or was something far worse at play? Every time I look back at those moments, I feel as though I've never fully escaped. The memory of those hollow eyes haunts me. The way he stood there waiting, still as a statue, like he knew something I didn't. And that feeling that I was being followed, that he was out there somewhere, watching, it never truly left me. So if you're ever driving down a long, lonely highway and you see an empty rest area, I beg you, don't stop. Don't let the stillness fool you. You might think you're alone, but sometimes in places like that, the darkness hides something much worse. And if you do stop and you see someone standing in the corner, staring at you with those hollow eyes, just keep driving. Because I can promise you one thing, whatever it is, it won't let you go that easily. Do you dare to listen to the dark? If tonight's tale gave you chills, let us know your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear what creeps you out and what other stories you'd love us to explore. Don't miss out on the next terrifying story. Subscribe to DTC The Place of the Brave and join the family that thrives on the unknown. Tap the notification bell so you're the first to hear every spine-chilling tale. Share this video with someone brave enough to face the darkness, and let's dive deeper into the creeps that haunt our world. Comment below and become part of the terror. The darkness is calling, and we want you with us. Story 4. The Mysterious Antique Mirror. Sometimes there are things in life you stumble upon by accident, things that once you touch them will never let you go. I'm a collector of antiques, particularly those objects that carry an eerie sense of mystery with them. For me, there's always something more than just an object behind each antique. There's a story, a history waiting to be uncovered. It could be a forgotten item, an artifact lost in time, or something with a dark, lingering presence. And on one fateful afternoon, I found something that would change everything. I found the mirror. It was an ordinary yard sale, or so I thought. The place was tucked away on the outskirts of town, far from the bustling crowds and neon lights. A dusty old barn sat at the edge of a forgotten street, overflowing with piles of objects, some useful, some worthless, and some, well, downright strange. People usually avoided this area, considering it a dumping ground for unwanted trinkets. But for me, it was the perfect hunting ground. There was always something hidden in the pile that might just be the treasure I was looking for. Little did I know that I was about to find something that would haunt me for the rest of my life. There, amidst the dusty clutter, I saw it, a large, ornate mirror. Its golden frame was tarnished with age, yet there was an undeniable beauty to it, elegant, intricate, and strangely hypnotic. The mirror's surface was cloudy and cracked in places, the reflection of light distorted, but even then, there was something about it that felt wrong. The deeper I looked into the mirror, the more I felt it was staring back at me. "How much for the mirror?" I asked, unable to tear my gaze away from it. The old man behind the table didn't immediately respond. His eyes, dark, hollow, sunken, locked onto mine. There was a strange stillness about him, an unnerving calmness. "That mirror," he said slowly, almost in a whisper, "is not for sale." I chuckled, trying to brush it off, but I could feel a chill creeping up my spine, and the words stuck in my throat. Something about his tone made me uneasy. Still, I pressed on. "I'll pay a good price for it. I'm a collector. I know the value of fine antiques." He paused, his eyes narrowing, studying me as if he were weighing something invisible in the air between us. "You really want it, don't you?" he finally muttered, his voice barely audible. There was something hypnotic in his words, a slow pull, like a tide dragging me deeper into its reach. And for reasons I couldn't explain, I found myself nodding. "Yes, I do." The man's expression shifted, just slightly, almost imperceptibly, and I saw a glimmer of something in his eyes. It wasn't greed. It was something darker, something I couldn't quite place. "I'll bring it to your home," he said after a long pause, "but we'll do it my way." I hesitated, an odd sensation crawling under my skin, but curiosity got the better of me. "Okay, bring it to my place." That night I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted, that I had crossed some unseen threshold. There was an air of dread that seemed to settle in my home when the old man arrived with the mirror. The moment he placed it down, I noticed the temperature drop in the room, an almost tangible coldness that seemed to seep from the mirror itself. I tried to dismiss it, telling myself it was just the change in weather or perhaps the odd behavior of the man. But there was something about him, his expression, the way his hands trembled slightly as he handled the mirror, that set my nerves on edge. When he left, his parting words echoed in my mind. "Be careful," he warned before disappearing into the night. "It doesn't let go easily." At first I thought I was being paranoid, but the strange occurrences began almost immediately. It started with subtle things, faint noises in the night, a whispering breeze when all the windows were shut. But as the days passed, things escalated. I found myself drawn to the mirror, unable to stay away. The reflection, it wasn't just me. It never was. I'd look into it, and for a split second I'd catch a shadow moving behind me. I'd turn, heart racing, but no one was there. It was only when I returned to the mirror that I'd see it, just for a moment, before it vanished. But that wasn't the worst part. I began to have strange dreams. Nightmares that felt more real than any waking moment. In one dream, I was standing in front of the mirror, but the reflection wasn't mine. A dark figure, its face obscured in shadows, stood where I should have been. And then it spoke. "You shouldn't have touched it." I decided to research the mirror, hoping to find some rational explanation, some history that would calm my nerves. But instead of answers, I found something far worse. There was a story, a dark legend about a mirror just like this one. It had once belonged to a wealthy, powerful family in the 19th century, a family that sought immortality through dark rituals. The mirror, as the legend goes, was the vessel through which the souls of the departed were trapped. It was said that whoever possessed it would slowly be consumed, their life force drained by the souls it had captured over the years. I read on, feeling the chill of fear crawl down my spine. The mirror was no mere object, it was a prison holding something dark, something restless. The souls within it were never at peace, and they fed on the living. Now I could feel them, feel their presence behind the glass. The mirror was no longer just an object, it was a gateway, and I had opened it. Every night the whispers grew louder, the shadows more distinct. I could see them now, not just in the reflection, but in the room with me, their pale faces pressed against the glass, their hands reaching out toward me. The more I looked into the mirror, the more I realized the truth. I wasn't just looking into the past. I was looking into something that had no place in this world. The souls, the shadows. They wanted to take me. They wanted to drag me into the mirror with them, to add my soul to the collection. I tried to get rid of it. I wrapped it up, tossed it in the attic, tried to burn it, but nothing worked. It always came back, sitting there, patiently waiting for me to surrender. It's been weeks now, and I can't escape it. I can't escape them. The mirror won't let me. It's too late for me. But if you're listening, if you're hearing this, I warn you, don't ever touch an antique mirror. Don't ever let it into your home. The darkness inside is patient, and it will wait for you just as it waited for me. Because once you look into it, you'll never escape. And one day the mirror will stare back, and you won't like what you see. Do you dare to listen to the dark? If tonight's tale gave you chills, let us know your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear what creeps you out and what other stories you'd love us to explore. Don't miss out on the next terrifying story. Subscribe to DTC, The Place of the Brave, and join the family that thrives on the unknown. Tap the notification bell so you're the first to hear every spine-chilling tale. Share this video with someone brave enough to face the darkness, and let's dive deeper into the creeps that haunt our world. Comment below and become part of the terror. The darkness is calling, and we want you with us.